What's up, guys? So, Sony just finally revealed officially the PS5 Pro tech presentation. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You guys could see it for yourself. But as you could see here, it's 150,000 dislikes to 92,000 likes because people are looking at this and they're realizing the difference is just not that big. And if you went through the whole PS4 versus PS4 Pro era, you already learned the lesson that the console being slightly more powerful, did that guarantee better gaming? The answer is no. And I'm not falling for this twice. And when you have to freeze frame a certain shot just to and then sort of like use a magnifying glass to show you the differences, that is a telltale sign and a red flag that this is all marketing hype. Is the PS5 Pro more powerful? Absolutely. It's a bigger GPU. They're promising a lot of things. The problem is that the problems with these games today are on the game developer's side. It's not on the hardware side. The PS5 Pro is already pretty powerful. The Xbox is already pretty powerful. We've already seen games that look visually impressive. The problem is that game developers are too focused on graphics and they're not delivering the frame rates. So the problem is with game developers. And until they start focusing more on performance and frame rates, people, gamers are not going to be satisfied. We've already reached a point where, or I should say that the point of diminishing returns, where you're just not getting as much anymore. Like when you went from PS2 to PS3 to PS4, as each generation of console came out, the differences in graphics were becoming smaller and smaller. PS1 to PS2, PS2 to PS3, and the differences were very noticeable. And now with each generation, it's becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And the frame rates are still 30. So they need to focus more on frame rates. That's what people want. That's what Mark Cerny admitted to here, that 3 out of 4 gamers are choosing performance mode over fidelity on the PS5 with these games. But he's showing you, watch this.
Than PS5. For this, my favorite is the
Hold on.
60 frames per second. What we see here is a difference in detail. PS5 Pro is much sharper and crisper than PS5.
Okay. So when you're playing a game in real time, the graphics just aren't as important or noticeable as they are when you're dissecting a frame. This is why they freeze a frame. They got to give you a close-up so you could see, okay, look, the signage here is clearer here. The windows here have this opaque, like, it doesn't look as good as here. You could see through. You could see all these little details. However, when you're playing the game in real time, this stuff is not anywhere near as noticeable as it is when they're doing these analysis videos. So you look at this, it looks impressive.
For this,
but
it's my favorite.
While you're playing a game, it's not that noticeable. It isn't. My God, what am I doing? Hold on.
For this, my favorite is the parade scene from Ratchet and Clank. Distant details are much clearer. And
again, they gotta freeze the frame and give you a close-up. Okay, this is slightly better. But when you're playing the game in real time, you're never gonna notice this stuff. This is all marketing hype.
And here we can see Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is noticeably higher resolution throughout the scene, including the trees.
Yeah, it's slightly sharper here. Big deal.
And procedural cars. So overall, some remarkable improvement to the games. On PS5 Pro, we can see increased sharpness to the graphics,
Remarkable.
or smoother and more responsive gameplay. This is the big three showing their value.
And they're touting these big three things that they're bringing with the PS5 Pro. Marketing. Again, advanced ray tracing is part of the GPU. So the only thing here that really matters is the larger GPU, which is the most noticeable difference. Obviously, a bigger GPU is going to give you more power. More power to do things. Yeah, on the game development side, they have more room to do things. I get it. That's all well and good. But the fact that you're giving these developers more power does not guarantee you're going to get better games. Here we are, several years later, after the PS5 was released, we're still complaining about 30 frames per second. Because developers are focused on graphics. But and a lot of games give you a performance mode where you can actually play 60 frames. They can't do it for every game, but it's amazing to me how they're trying to get away with touting the power of the PS5 Pro and not shit all over their own PS5, which they already promised you. I remember early on they were like, oh, 4K 60 frames, and at the end developers are not able to do that or just aren't trying. Game developers have become lazy. They're focused on things like microtransactions and making games look as impressive graphically as possible to get people impressed to buy the game. But then you play the game and you're like, oh, it's choppy, it's 30 frames per second. Well, he already admitted 3 out of 4 gamers are choosing performance mode. Why aren't developers focusing more on performance and frame rates? That's what they should be doing. They're choosing not to do that. So Sony cannot guarantee that you're going to get a better gaming experience. That is up to game developers. As far as graphics go, we've already hit the point of diminishing returns. I've said this before. Games are already super impressive graphically. How much better do you expect these games to look? And it's insane how they're marketing this, and they think you're too dumb to notice, but people are noticing. Look at this, 150,000 dislikes to 92,000 likes. This is horrible for Sony. Advanced ray tracing is part of a larger GPU. They are just chopping this up to make it look like, oh, look at all these big things we're adding. Same shit. By the way, ray tracing is one of the most overhyped things we've had in terms of game development. We've been hearing about ray tracing for almost 10 years now. And has it really made a difference in your game experience? Or is it really that noticeable? How many games are actually utilizing it to the max, to maximum effectiveness? And they're still pumping this shit out. It's like, I don't think that many people care at this point. This was a big deal when they first started mentioning it. Oh my God, ray tracing and blah. Oh my God, look how good this looks. And they show you freeze frames and all kinds of. And at the end of the day, when you play games in real time, not that noticeable. And here AI-driven upscaling. Again, this is checkerboard rendering. This is the new checkerboard rendering. Remember checkerboard rendering with the PS4 Pro? That was all the rage. Oh my God, they're going to give us almost like fucking 4K. And it wasn't. And the games weren't that better looking. Yes, they were better. This much better. And that's why they have to freeze frame and show you something really magnified up close to show you, look, there's more blades of grass here. There's more reflections here. But when you're playing a game in real time, you don't really notice those things. And game developers have already proven they can make really fantastic looking games on current consoles. You don't need this PS5 Pro. And the PS4 Pro already proved to me that it doesn't guarantee you're going to get a better gaming experience, because it's up to game developers. They're the ones dragging their feet. They're the ones focused on things that really should not be top priority for them. Any game developer today in 2024 that can't develop a game that looks visually impressive is really just not doing a good job. You can create visually impressive games on current consoles. They need to focus on performance, making sure the games run smoother, better frame rate. That's what people are asking for. They're trying to tell you you need a PS5 Pro to do that, and that doesn't guarantee anything. The PS4 Pro, in my opinion, was mostly a disappointment. It's like if you didn't get a PS4 Pro, you weren't missing out on much. You just weren't. People who tell you that you were, they're just they bought it and they want to believe it. It's like you spend money on something and you want to believe it's so much better because you spent the money. You fell for the marketing. This is marketing. This is checkerboard. AI-driven upscaling is just the new checkerboard rendering. That's all it is. Now, does it work better? Is it slightly more polished? I have no doubt that it probably is. But again, it's one of these things where the improvement is not that noticeable. It just isn't.
As you've been seeing, machine learning via the PSSR library is being used quite broadly to add pixel detail and boost frame rate. But there are as many approaches as there are game engines. The increase in raw GPU power is being especially effective for Horizon Forbidden West. Apart from the detail boost, that extra graphics power is allowing for improvements to lighting and visual effects, as well as to the hair and the skin in cinematics.
Look, we already have really impressive graphics. I'm just telling you, they're trying to market something and sell it to you. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. I'm just gonna.
Hardware in PS5 Pro can make a real difference, allowing Gran Turismo 7 to add ray-traced reflections between the cars in gameplay, while continuing to support their targeted 60 frames per second. That boost in ray tracing is...
Every racing game has to be 60 frames. I'm really curious to know what iRacing is focused on for the NASCAR game. It has to meet 60 frames. You can't release a 30 frame per second game, racing game. And racing games are probably the easiest games to develop in terms of frame rate. Like if you can't meet 60 frames per second, that's going to be a big fail on iRacing. So I'm assuming they're focused. That's a target for them. We'll have to wait and see. But every racing title has to meet 60 frames per second. The fact that this is only now available on PS5 Pro, it's crazy. It's
also delivering.
I can't believe that. I haven't played Forza, so I don't know. But maybe there's a performance mode versus I don't know.
Hogwarts Legacy, allowing not only for...
All right, look, let's get to the... I don't want to drag this on. There are a lot of people covering this right now, but I'm just telling you, don't waste your money. $700 for a PS5 Pro. And everything I just explained to you, you ask yourself, is this worth it? By the way, the stand is sold separately, and disk drive it doesn't come with a disk drive. If you want a disk drive, it's separate. That's another $80 for a fucking disk drive. So they are pushing to get rid of game discs. They don't want you to own anything anymore. Everything's going to be digital. They want more control over things that you purchase and then have full control over your ownership. You're owning a digital copy, which there's no guarantee is going to be yours forever. They won't even $700, and they won't even give you the stand for it. This is insane. You don't need this. This is all hype. It's not going to make your video game experience noticeably better. You're going to need a magnifying glass. And of course, the delusion as a gamer, as a consumer, I should say, that your money is being well spent. Don't support this business model. A PS5 is perfectly fine. It's game developers that have to step up and do a better job. And I don't hear anyone screaming for more ray tracing. They want frame rates. The number one rule of business is to give customers what they're asking for. You give people what they want, they will buy it. You won't need to overhype a product and use all this extra marketing. Those are my thoughts on this. I'm curious to know what you guys think. So I look forward to your comments later.